Last spring, on a quiet stretch of the Hiwassee River in Tennessee, I watched something I still think about almost every time I pour my morning coffee. A guy next to me had the full setup. $200 rod, fresh power bait, and a cup of night crawlers from the bait shop. $15 for maybe 30 sluggish worms packed in styrofoam. He was confident. He had the gear. 20 feet down the bank, an old man, easily pushing 80, reached into his vest and pulled out a folded Ziploc bag. It was full of something dark, wet, and clumpy. He crouched down, dumped the whole thing on the soft dirt near the water's edge, poured a little water over it from his bottle, and stepped back without a word. 40 seconds later, he started picking up worms. I counted out loud. 8, 17, 26. He stopped at 34 because that was enough, but there were more still surfacing. The guy with the $15 cup just watched. Drop a comment right now. Tell me which city you're watching from. I want to see where the real fishermen are at. That dark stuff in the bag? Used coffee grounds. From that morning. The stuff he was going to throw in the trash. He baited his hook with a fat crawler, tossed his line into the current, and sat back on his bucket like nothing happened. He's been doing this since before the first Bass Pro Shops opened its doors. And here's what the bait industry doesn't want spreading around. Because once it spreads, a whole lot of that $15 a cup business dries up real fast. Bait shops from the Great Lakes all the way down to the Gulf Coast charge you $12, $15, sometimes $18 for a styrofoam cup of night crawlers. Every single trip. That adds up to $60, $80, $100 a month for a lot of weekend fishermen across the country. And they charge it knowing exactly what the old-timers figured out generations ago along the river bottoms of Appalachia, the Ozarks, and the Texas Hill Country. You can't put a logo on coffee grounds. You can't mark them up 800% and sell them at a register. The moment this becomes common knowledge, a massive chunk of the live bait market loses its reason to exist, so it stays quiet. It doesn't make the sponsored fishing content. It never shows up in the tackle catalogs. What you're about to learn won't cost you a single dollar. But before you see the exact steps, you need to understand why this works. Because without the why, you'll mess up the execution and think it failed. The thing is, this trick is just one piece of what the old-timers kept in their back pocket. They didn't just know how to pull free bait out of the ground. They knew how to read a river bend, how to work a shaded bank in August heat versus a cold October morning, which structure held catfish versus bass depending on the season. That whole system of knowledge got buried when the fishing industry went commercial. I spent years tracking down what I could, talking to guides along the Mississippi Delta, old rivermen in the Ozarks, longtime fishermen in the hill country of central Texas, and put it all together in high-level fishing, the water game. If you're done paying for bait that was half dead before it hit your hook, the guide in the pinned comment covers exactly how to source, prep, and use natural bait the way the old-timers did it. It's right there below. One click. Now, the biology. Because this is where it gets genuinely wild. Earthworms have no eyes. They navigate entirely through chemoreception and mechanoreception, chemical signals, and vibration. The natural trigger that pulls them to the surface is rain. When water saturates the soil, it pushes carbon dioxide deeper into the ground. That CO2 buildup signals danger to worms living 3 to 6 inches down. Surface or suffocate. Coffee grounds replicate that exact chemical signal. Used grounds are loaded with nitrogen, potassium, and organic acids, specifically compounds that shift the CO2 balance in the top layer of soil the same way a heavy rain does. At the same time, caffeine acts as a mild irritant on dermal receptors. It doesn't hurt them, but it makes staying underground deeply uncomfortable. They move up by survival instinct. And here's the second trigger, which is what makes this thing insane. The amino acid profile of decomposing coffee mimics organic matter in decay. Exactly what earthworms hunt as a food source. You're firing two responses at once, the survival instinct to surface and the feeding instinct to investigate the same spot. Researchers at the Royal Horticultural Society documented measurable worm surface activity within minutes of coffee ground application during soil studies. Old fishermen along the Tennessee Valley and in the Appalachian foothills were doing this 60 years before any lab confirmed it. The researchers caught up to what those men already knew. It's not a folktale. It's chemistry. Now that you have the why, here's the exact setup that pulls 80 to 115 worms in under a minute on a warm morning. Everything you need is already sitting in your kitchen right now. Used coffee grounds, at least 2 to 3 cups, still wet from the filter. Don't dry them out. The moisture is part of the activation mechanism. Dry grounds don't release the chemical signal the same way. If you brewed this morning, those grounds are exactly right. Half a gallon of water. Regular tap water is fine. Total cost, $0. You were throwing this away anyway. Step 1. Find the right patch of ground. Shaded soil near the water's edge. Under trees, near root systems, along a soft riverbank. You need loose, organically rich soil. Hard clay banks won't give you the same results. Forest floor next to a creek? That's your spot. Step 2. Pre-soak the area. Pour about a quart of water over a 2-foot by 2-foot patch. Just get the surface damp, not soaked through. You're preparing the soil to receive the grounds. Step 3. Dump your coffee grounds in a concentrated pile at the center of the wet patch, roughly half an inch thick. Then spread the outer edges slightly, like a bullseye. Don't spread it too thin. You want the chemical signal dense at the core so the worms converge in one spot. Step 4. Wait and don't touch it. Don't walk on the patch. Don't poke at it. On warm mornings between 55 and 70 grader, worms start pushing up in 30 to 40 seconds. On cooler mornings, give it 90 seconds. Collect from the outer ring first, then work inward. That ratio, 3 cups of wet grounds to a half-gallon pre-soak, is one of the methods in the full guide, where there are more breakdowns for different soil types and different times of year. One thing most people miss when they collect: don't dig into the pile. The moment you scatter the grounds, you kill the scent concentration and the deeper worms stop coming up. Work the perimeter, patient and steady. Having 100 live worms means nothing if you put them in the wrong water at the wrong time. You want slow-moving eddies just downstream from current breaks. A boulder, a downed log, a bridge pylon. On rivers like the Cumberland in Kentucky, the Guadalupe in Texas, the Merrimack in Missouri, those current breaks are where channel cats, bass, and crappie park and wait for food to drift to them. Drop your crawler right at the edge of that slack water. Dawn is when this setup is most dangerous. Water temperatures are at their lowest. Fish are hunting by smell more than sight. And a fat live night crawler on a drop-shot rig near submerged wood at first light isn't really fishing anymore. It's just picking fish up. Channel catfish, bluegill, crappie, and largemouth all hit fresh live crawlers hard, especially in spring pre-spawn and early fall when water cools back down. Now, the fatal error. The one thing that kills more worm rigs than any other single mistake, and almost nobody talks about it. Sunscreen on your hands. You put SPF 50 on your face and hands at 6 a.m. Then you thread a worm on your hook, and you've just coated that crawler in a synthetic chemical wall that destroys the entire amino acid scent trail the fish was following. The base detects it, turns away, and you spend the next 2 hours wondering why nothing's biting. Before you touch your bait, rinse your hands in the river. Scrub them with a handful of dirt if you have to. Get the sunscreen off. It sounds like a small thing. It's the difference between a full stringer and a long drive home with nothing to show. Now picture what your next trip looks like. Your buddy stops at the bait shop on the way out. $15? Styrofoam cup? Half the worms already sluggish from the cooler. You drive straight to the bank with yesterday's coffee grounds in a Ziploc. 40 seconds after you get there, you've got more live bait than both of you can use in a full day. By 7 a.m., you've already landed 3 fish. He's still adjusting his bobber. He asks what you're using. You just smile and keep fishing. Click the link now, get your copy of High-Level Fishing, the water game, and let these strategies start changing what happens on your next trip out. The link is in the first pinned comment. Right below this video. When you get back from the water and you've put this to work, come back here and drop a comment. Got more? That's your commitment to yourself, and maybe exactly the step that separates the fishing stories you hear from the fishing stories you're going to start telling. The old man on the Hiwassee didn't learn this from a store. He learned it from someone who learned it from someone else. That chain almost broke. Subscribe and hit the bell. You don't want to miss what's coming next.